The lowest positivity rate we have seen so far, a new vaccine out there and being administered, and of course tomorrow, the end of the statewide mask mandate. Some of the biggest headlines, if you will, and where we are right now with this pandemic. So to give us some perspective on that, in today's KSAT Q&A, let's bring in Cherise Rohr Allegrini, a local epidemiologist who we've been happy to have join us several times to give us all this information and help us really contextualize it. So thanks so much for your time. First, I'm curious what your take is on where we are right now. The numbers are looking good in our community, but what does that signal to you?
We're heading in the right direction, and this is great. We're at our lowest point since early November, which makes me very hopeful, and I'm hoping that the vaccine is really going to have an effect and bring those numbers even further down. But keep in mind, we never got down below the threshold that we wanted to get to feel really confident. So I think it's going to be really important that not to get, I want to get excited about these numbers, and I want everyone to be hopeful, but I also want us to continue to be cautious.
And they said today, so far, 19% of those eligible here in Bexar County have had the first dose, 11% fully vaccinated in Bexar County, which is the best of the 5 biggest counties in Texas right now, but still clearly a very long way to go to getting more and more people vaccinated.
We have a long way to go. We have, even if all those folks are vaccinated and if we consider everybody that's been infected potentially immune, we're still under 30% of people immune. And something that's really important to keep in mind is the racial ethnic disparities in vaccination. I just looked up today's numbers, and 11% of our white population is vaccinated, but only 6% of our Hispanic population and less than 4% of our Black population. So there might be a number of reasons for that, but that's something to really keep in mind, that vaccination isn't equitable across the board, and we need to make sure that we're protecting everybody in San Antonio.
There's so many different layers to what our community is going through right now. And I'm curious what your thoughts on these variants are, because on the one hand, I think people are feeling very hopeful with more vaccines out there, but then we're also hearing about the threat of these mutations. So what do we need to know about those at this point?
Well, absolutely. It's been a race. One of my mentors, Peter Hotez at Baylor, has said this often. It's a race between the vaccine and the variants. And I'm a little bit worried because I think that by removing all the restrictions in Texas, we're giving a boost to the variants. We know that the vaccines seem to be working well against the variants, but the variants are more infectious. And so that's a concern. That's why we need to continue to be extremely careful. Like I say, I'm so glad the numbers are coming down. But if we don't stay in front of these variants, we might end up in a situation where we were a few months ago, and we don't want that.
And I know we're focused on getting the older population and those with medical issues and first responders and teachers vaccinated first, but they're still currently doing studies on the vaccines and how they impact children. When do you think we will see children getting in line to get their jab as well?
So I'm a little biased. My 14-year-old daughter is in one of the vaccine studies, and we're really hoping that she actually got the vaccine. That study is planned for a 2-year study. However, I suspect that it'll be called sometime in the summer when they have enough data. We've seen it in adults. We've seen it in 17 and 18-year-olds. So my suspicion is that in teenagers, at least, that it'll be just as effective. And my hope is that by the time school starts in the fall, we'll be able to start vaccinating at least adolescents, if not younger kids.
You mentioned this already. I want to get kind of a greater take on it tomorrow, the end of the statewide mask mandate. Is that a concern for you that it will ultimately lead to a rise, a significant one, in cases?
I want to be wrong, but it's absolutely a concern, and I'm very worried about a rise in cases. And even though we're working really hard to encourage people to continue to follow all the guidelines, wear masks, so many businesses are sticking to their previous protocols about mask wearing and distancing within their business. When we're told by the governor that we can relax all our restrictions, the message is often COVID isn't a problem anymore, and a lot of people don't take precautions. And so it's going to be really necessary that we continue to take the precautions until we really see consistently low numbers. As excited as I am about our low positivity rate this week, I want to see that for a month before I'll start to feel more confident.
Would have been comfortable if we did this maybe a month or so in the future rather than tomorrow?
Exactly. I would, like I said, I want to see those numbers go down and stay down for a while before we go into the next step. We're doing it a little bit earlier than I would have liked. I would say at least a month, and then I would feel much more confident.
So as we wrap up here, can you just give us your take on what we need to understand about where we are in this pandemic? And of course, you're always looking at trends about where we've been and where we're going. So anything we should be expecting to come?
Well, I think it's important to note that while our numbers are looking really good, we're still much higher than we were in April or May last year before we had our first initial big surge. And so that's concerning. Now, we have the bonus of having a vaccine, or 3 vaccines now, as well as understanding more about the virus and about how to treat it and how to prevent it. So we're in better shape than we were then. But it does make me concerned that our numbers aren't low enough. We really need to get down below that threshold. So I'm really, I want to be super positive and excited, and I think we're moving in the right direction. But to continue moving in the right direction, we need to stay the course a little bit longer.
All right, local epidemiologist Cherise Rohr Allegrini, always appreciate you being here and your input. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.